Hello and welcome to Fearless Friday. My name is Bhairavi Shera, your host. And on Fearless Friday, we tackle all things related to fear, whether it's actions, whether it's things happening in our society, whether it's happening inside of ourselves, whether it's in our mind, in our relationships, whatever it is, we tackle all things fear. We decode it, we figure out how it's holding us captive, and then we hopefully through the conversation we find ways to move away from fear into more freedom and love and connection. And so I have an extraordinary guest on the show today. Her name is Cara Miaverità, and she is a survivor of sex trafficking. And we know that sex trafficking is something that our society doesn't really talk about much. And much of what is talked about is very surface level, and it's hard to have these really raw, real conversations because it brings images to the mind that we may not be able to withstand. And so as you're listening to Cara's story today, I encourage you to just connect with your inner peace, inner love, and listen with a pure heart, because what she is experienced and what she's about to share, and how she's overcome some of these tyrannical and treacherous experiences, is a miracle. And I'm just so honored that she is on the show today and here to share her story on Fearless Friday. If anything, I would say this is probably one of the greatest fears that we experience here on the planet, in relationship to pain and trauma, and it goes along the lines of like child sacrifice and the bloodshed of children. So take a deep breath in and welcome Cara to the show. Thank you so much for being here, Cara.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very grateful for this opportunity.
Yeah, I have been doing this work for almost a year now, anti-human trafficking awareness and activism. And you and I got connected through a mutual friend. And when I met you, just to look at you, it doesn't seem like there's anything really, that you went through. You just seem so put together and calm and peaceful. And, it just goes to show that, sometimes things happen in our lives and we can heal out of them, but the stories still remain. And, there's still so much to be shared. And so when I heard your story, I was like, she needs to be on my show for sure. And yeah, I'm just going to ask you some questions, and then, you know, you get to just share. You ready?
I'm ready.
Um,
um,
yeah. Did you want to say something?
yeah, I mean, I could tell you a little bit about my upbringing, how I met my trafficker.
Yes,
Um,
please.
so I was raised in Hudson Valley of New York. My mom is 100% Irish. My father is mostly Italian. My parents have always been very supportive. They're both from the Bronx, but chose to raise my older brother and I in a safer area. I played sports as a kid. I had plenty of friends. Overall, I did have a good childhood. So I believe there is a misconception that sex trafficking only happens to people in impoverished communities, but that's not the case. It doesn't discriminate. It can happen to anyone. That was one thing I wanted to clarify. So how I met my trafficker, it was actually back in 2016. I was 19 when I met him. My best friend at the time is actually who introduced me to him. I had went away to college directly after high school, and I did have certain qualities that made me a more susceptible target to be trafficked. I had many negative coping mechanisms and unresolved pain that I was behaving self destructively on. So while I was away at college, I met a friend right after I had been sexually assaulted. I had been sexually assaulted a few times while I was away at college, and She took me to her house right after. She gave me clothes, took care of me. So I trusted her, and we really had a close relationship, I think, just based off of meeting that way. And by the time my freshman year of college was over, I went back home for the summer. I had ongoing family issues, which made my home a bit of a toxic environment. There were better options compared to running away, but that is exactly what I did. Um, I ran away from home. From there, my friend had picked me up. It was about 3 a.m., July 2016. We went back to Ithaca and we met up with my soon to be trafficker, which was a guy that she had just gotten very close with. I think she was interested in him. My initial plan was to move to Arizona right after I had ran away. I had been curious about sex work. I just wanted to do it one time for quick cash, move to Arizona, but that's not what happened. And my interest in the sex industry back then kind of got exploited. And the pimp that was supposedly showing us about sex work, this is what I thought was going to happen. He convinced me I was better off living with him on the road, getting paid. He said we would be saving all of this money up toward my future, that he would only keep 30% of the money and 70% of it would be mine. So this was July. By the time it was August, I realized what was going on. I didn't realize it was sex trafficking, but I did know I was being taken advantage of.
Mm.
I had a quota of $1,000 to make every day. And I felt like I was being used. I tried to leave, and the first time I tried to leave, they just gave me drugs. So it's like I lost that sense of empowerment, that where I wanted to actually leave, it just all disappeared. Either I was given drugs, eventually it led to physical abuse whenever I tried leaving. So I got kind of stuck in this situation for a long time, and I felt like I couldn't get out of it. I started to accept that as my fate, pretty much. I used to tell myself, like, oh, somebody has to be a prostitute. I guess it just happens to be me. Like, I really thought that that is what I was supposed to be doing in life, and I was very brainwashed. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So initially, when you ran away, was there a reason why you ran away from home?
Yeah, so I had kind of family problems going on back home, and I was kind of in a very not a good mindset. My judgment was completely impaired. I had been blacking out almost every day. So I do think drugs played a really big part in a lot of my decisions back then.
So in your like before you ran away, you were using, and these kind of led you away from your parents and from your family, and that's where some of the altercations in your family came from.
Yes, and there was, like, my mom had actually told me while I was in high school that she did want me to go away to college because she felt like that my home situation was already toxic, just unrelated to me, but like other members in my family having issues, she felt was an issue to me. And it really was a toxic environment. So it was a combination of that. And then I started also having problems with my parents. So it was like a combination of
Hmm.
family issues.
Sure. And then you were just seeking safety. And so you met this girl and you went to college, and this girl introduced you to this guy, and this guy moves you. And tell us about like what the nature of your relationship with him was, and why it seemed like it was, the thing just to do in that moment.
So I was very vulnerable, and what I was seeking back then was pretty much safety, money, somewhere to live, a way to feed myself, and that's exactly what he preyed on. I think that there are different types of pimps and strategies that they use. Like, for example, if there's a woman that is seeking love, there's the Romeo kind of pimp, and he'll try to make her fall in love with him. In my case, I felt like it was he approached me in a business kind of way. Like, he once said to me in the beginning, he said, "I know that you have issues back home, but I'll be your home. So it's like he kind of just preyed on that vulnerability, and he knew that I needed money. So it was like he made it all about money and how I would live this glamorous lifestyle. So it's really depending on what your vulnerabilities are. I feel like that's the approach that they will take.
So they take your feelings and then they manipulate them, and then they make you think that what they're about to do, which is like sell you to people for money, is glorified. So I
Yes.
remember you sharing this before, in previous conversations, where people had looked at you and your life and they had seen it as a life of glorification. um, why would
Yes.
anyone think that a life like this is glory?
Right. And you know, a lot of, even when I was brainwashed, I once glamorized it myself. And I think other people back home that saw my social media, they saw that I was in all different states. They didn't know I was being sold across the country, but all they saw was that I was traveling, and they just assumed that I was living this glamorous lifestyle.
What other indicators would have been evident to them that you were living glamorously besides the
Um
travel?
Well, I'm sure it is probably my fault for acting like everything was fine. I was living this good life, you know, because that's what I was pretty much brainwashed to behave like, you know?
So were you showing, like, your clothes or like your look or your cars
Yeah,
or things like that?
that too. I had gotten a new car, and he made sure I was always looking my best. My nails were done. I had all clothes. I was the product, so he really maintained what I looked like,
Right.
and
And
it
then
confused other people, including
right.
me.
Yeah, right? Because then we're like
Mhm.
thinking that it's the way we look or the things that we have that make us good people.
Right. It's all
Mm,
materialistic.
mhm.
And you know, a lot of people kind of praised me back then, which made it even more confusing for me.
Mm. In what way? How did they praise you?
Like, just the materialistic part, like,
Mm,
oh wow, like you're doing so well, you have all this money, and it's like the reality of the situation was very ugly,
mm, mm. Yeah,
which is,
the deeper parts of it are, you're not just working, you're selling your body.
yes.
And it's not even you selling your body, someone else is selling your body for you.
Right. Like having sex with people you don't want to, being in pain, like that's no way to live. It's not glamorous at all.
So, how long did it take before you realized that something was off?
Um, I want to say I realized almost right away. Like
Mm,
once it was August, I tried to leave, but it's like every time I tried to, they wouldn't let me. So I started just kind of drowning out those thoughts of wanting to leave or knowing something wasn't right with alcohol. I pretty much just lied to myself to cope, and I really tried to glamorize it the same way that all the other girls that were being trafficked did, because that, I don't know, that's the way everyone copes. I think that's easier than facing the truth.
so what stopped you from just leaving at that moment?
Well, the first time, my friend that was also out there with me, the girl,
Mhm,
she had actually begged me to stay. She told me to give it another chance. It's gonna work out. The beginning was just messy, but now things are gonna turn around. And she was my best friend. She was also like several years older than me, so I kind of looked up to her and trusted her. Didn't think she would really guide me in the wrong direction. But
mm,
then he ended up sending her home, and that's when I started feeling like maybe she set me up, because how come she got to just leave like that and I was stuck in the
mm.
situation? And when I tried leaving after that, he would choke me or hit me. I don't know if she actually did set me up. She says that's not the case. She was just also lost. I think she was interested in sex work, and that got kind of taken advantage of. I guess I'll never know, and it really doesn't matter, but it wasn't easy for me to leave. It felt impossible.
So you mentioned some violence. Can
Yes.
you share a little bit about the violence that you experienced, whether it was from your pimp or anybody else?
Yes. So I had gotten sexually assaulted just by tricks. I had gotten sexually assaulted by a police officer. Another time, my trafficker, he strangled me very often. I got drugged a lot. I don't know what happened when I was drugged, but luckily I'm still alive. Um, my trafficker, the main way that he would kind of attack me physically was mostly just choking me, punching me in the ribs. Um, he once poured hot sauce in my eyes, but yeah, I kind of got used to that. And after that, I ended up dating someone, and it ended up being an abusive relationship. I had never really been conditioned to abuse prior to meeting my trafficker.
Hmm. So these words, I'm just going to clarify these words. Trafficker and pimp can be used interchangeably.
Yes, that's
A-
right.
And what's a trick?
A trick or a John, someone that buys sex from an escort.
Right. And so you had shared that a police officer was a trick.
Yes, that's right. Um, so I was in Watertown, New York, and he showed up as a trick, and he was trying, I guess he didn't really have enough money, and I told him he had to leave, and he basically said, if you don't let me have sex with you, I'm going to arrest you. And I didn't know what to do. I kind of froze up, and he just proceeded to sexually assault me. So that happened. He showed me his badge. I was kind of shocked that a police officer would do that.
So this police officer essentially raped you.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And after that, I tried telling my pimp. Well, in my book, I call him Stacks. So let's just refer to him as that. So I called Stacks, and he pretty much didn't care. He said, "Oh, well, at least we saved bail money. Like, since I didn't get arrested and he didn't have to bail me out, that's all he cared about, the money."
Right, because prostitution, sex work is real, but prostitution is not, it's not uh, a legitimate way to make money unless you're like in a strip club. And if you're a strip club, that's a legitimate way to make money, but you're not supposed to have sex with the patrons. And then prostitution has definitely penalties, right? So,
Yes.
so how did the cops get called in the first place?
Um, they didn't get called. It was an undercover
Mm,
trick. He was actually a trick, but he didn't have money. He was a police officer, and he said, if you don't
ah,
have sex with me, I can arrest you, basically.
basically. So he just kind of manipulated you into having sex with him.
Yeah.
So was that early on? And then how did everything else progress while you were going through this experience? Because you were trafficked for about a year and a half?
Yes. So this, yeah, went on for about a year. My family, after I had ran away, they never really stopped reaching out. They've always cared about me very deeply. And I think that Stacks saw as my biggest flaw. The way that he handled that, he had me go home to see my family pretty like once, I want to say once a month, maybe once every 2 months. I would see them for maybe 2 days at a time. They knew that something was going on. They didn't really know all the details. I told them that I was now a secretary in Ithaca because they saw I had the way that I looked, the car, they saw the way I was carrying myself. They knew that something was up, but
Mm.
I was lying to them because I felt like I had to protect them. And yeah, I pretty much just traveled across the United States with Stacks and other pimps and prostitutes. We were in a different state, I want to say, every week. Yeah.
So
um
when you went home, what stopped you? Like, what stopped you from just staying home and not going back?
Well, I heard another pimp. This is the pimp that pretty much made Stacks who he was. He taught him everything. And I always heard him saying, like, if one of his girls were to snitch or tell their family, tell the police or anything, he would just kill them. So I was scared that they would kill me or kill my family. I felt like I was really like stuck in this situation.
Mm.
There were times where I did actually leave, and it was like he always found me if I tried leaving. So I kind of just gave up at one point because I felt like that was my fate and that was it.
Wow. So to be faced with, this, um, I don't even know what to call it. It's like this like obligation to be where they tell you to be, and then also be fearful of this because they're holding everything above you, and they're also holding your family against you by saying, if you go anywhere, if you tell anybody, I will kill them.
Right. And
Wow.
it was very painful to have to lie to my family,
Hmm.
you know. I think that might have been the worst part in it for me, because like I would go home and my mom would sometimes cry because she knew something was happening, and I could feel myself getting upset, but I didn't want to. I felt like I had to protect them, so I'd very quickly just kind of numb myself out, and I would call a taxi and get on a bus to Ithaca because I couldn't deal with it. It was too much. It was too painful.
So what was it like to be with many men who were just purchasing sex? Did you feel any feelings? Did you feel anything inside?
Um, I was very numb. I really numbed myself out a lot, and when I had to do that, I pretty much just detached myself completely. Like
Mm.
even if I was there physically, I would put myself somewhere else mentally. So I
Hmm.
didn't want to be present, or I didn't want to have to go actually feel what was happening, you know?
Right. So generally what happens with trauma is that when we experience something that we can't be present for, our minds and our consciousness splits and it bifurcates, and therefore there's a part of us that's present in the moment, but our sensational nature, it's like we can't recollect it and we numb out. And then later in time we would go and process all of that by pulling all of that consciousness back into the present moment. And so what I'm hearing is that you had to kind of like dissociate in order for you to have the experience, and you also numbed out. Were there any specific ways that you numbed out?
Um, it was mostly just mentally. I would just picture myself somewhere else, or I would pretend that the person having sex with me wasn't who it was, or it was
Mm,
someone that I loved. You know, I think that was the only way I could actually do it. Or
mhm,
I would just take drugs or alcohol so that I was kind of just blacked out.
mm.
But yeah, I was definitely completely detached, definitely what you just described. But I want to say afterwards, any feelings that came up regarding that, at least what I can remember of it, I just felt very ashamed. There was a lot of feelings of shame that I think I have worked through now.
Right. So, it's just like a compounding of shame upon shame while you were going through these experiences. And then, you know, of course, you've gone through some treatment, and we'll get to that in just a sec. But yeah, like, okay, so then what made you finally want to leave?
So I actually met, well, okay, so at first I knew that I wanted to leave Stacks. I knew that he wasn't treating me right, but I was still very conditioned into the lifestyle. I knew that I wanted to leave him, but I figured the best way to do that was to find another pimp, because I asked him, so if another pimp were to take me, would you respect that? Because I had tried all different ways of leaving, and it was like I kept failing. So because I always heard them say like pimps will respect it if you take like their girl from them, you have to respect it, basically. And so he said, yeah, it would suck to lose you, but I would have to respect the game. So I tried finding another man that was a pimp. In my book, I call him Matthias, and that ended up being that's the abusive relationship I was just referring to, but that is what led me to leaving. I ended up falling in love with him, and the love that I had, I used to think that he saved me, his love saved me, but really it's the love that I had for another person that gave me enough courage to actually leave. The time I escaped, it had been about a year and a half later. I was texting Matthias. I was in Pennsylvania. I told him that this was it. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't have sex with other people. And I had told Sax, listen, I'm not doing this anymore. I can't have sex with strangers. I can't live this lifestyle. I'm breaking my family's hearts. And we had this conversation a million times, but this time I was serious about it. So he left for the day. He came back and it was nighttime. And he said, why is it nighttime and there's no money in my palm? And I told him, I'm being serious. I'm actually going to leave. And he tried reverse psychology on me. He said, okay, if you want to leave, then go. But prior to that, he strangled me. This is when he poured the hot sauce in my eyes, punched me. And then once he said, okay, you want to leave, you can go. And that whole like reverse psychology thing had worked on me in the past. But this time, the minute he walked out of the room, I had already had all my bags packed. I had an Uber called already. So I ran out there. I got in the Uber, and then I had Matthias come to get me. And this time I shut off my location because that was another way that he had found me in the past with my location on. And I think because Matthias had been kind of involved in that lifestyle, he wasn't actually a pimp, but he had been somewhat involved in it previously. And I think I needed someone that understood that what I was in, to tell me that I guess I needed that validation for him to be like, listen, you don't need to be a prostitute. I want you to be with me. I don't want you to sell your body, because, pimps will tell you if you're having sex for free, you don't respect yourself if you're in a relationship. And I believed that. It made me feel like I would be worthless if I wasn't selling myself. I was really brainwashed into believing that. And I think I needed validation from someone that was familiar with it to tell me that that wasn't true. So I ended up leaving. I met up with my family shortly after that, and I told them I'm home for good now. And they met my now boyfriend, who I was with for about 2 years. But that ended up leading into a heroin addiction. It ended up being an abusive relationship in the end. So I do think I needed him to get out of that situation. Doesn't mean he was my soulmate, but the purpose was served for sure.
Mm-hmm. How does your relationship with God lead you through all of the experiences that you had?
While I was going through that, I actually found it very challenging to pray to God. I've always had a relationship with God, but it was like when I was going through that, when I prayed, I just felt so guilty because it's like the truth suddenly appeared to me, and I couldn't do it. I used to pray to the pimp gods and hoe fairies. I even once prayed to Satan, but in the end, I did turn to God. The day that I escaped, I pretty much surrendered to God, if that I could get out of that situation, and I did. It's a miracle.
I just got goosebumps as you shared that. Wow. So Cara has a book called Diary of a Sex Trafficking Survivor, and you can find it on Amazon. It's called Diary of a Sex Trafficking Survivor, Escaping the Streets and Stepping into My Power by Cara Miaverità. And you can find it on Amazon. And definitely check it out. Um, how did you get into your healing? Like what was the first thing that sparked the path and your journey into healing?
So when I got clean from heroin and I left Matthias, this was like the end of 2018. It was about to be 2019. I was in rehab and I had this dream, and it was basically like I was shown two paths, and it was basically one path of that looked very glamorous in the front, and it eventually led to like chaos. And then the other path, it was the path less traveled, and I would suffer at first, but it would be worth it in the long run, basically. And then I saw this bright white light, and it was like basically telling me I need to take the harder path. I need to get clean. I need to go back to school. I need to basically get everything back in order. And I took that as a message, and from there I actually had a dream of Arizona. And the next day, my mom had visited me, and she told me, "Yeah, we're thinking about moving to Arizona." And when she said that, I was like, "Whoa, that's wild. I had a dream about this." So
Mm.
I feel like God gave me a lot of messages of what my next steps should be. And I started meditating, I started praying more. When we moved to Sedona, I fell in love with it here. I met a lot of spiritual teachers, and they taught me a lot.
So when you were with Matthias, how like what was the spark for you to get clean? Like when for some people it's not as easy as that, like how would you be able to explain it to someone who was kind of in the same situation and was looking for a way out?
Well, it wasn't easy for me either. I did go to rehab a couple times. I think there just came a point where I reached my rock bottom, and I
Mm,
realized that it had it had been now 3 years from the first day that I was trafficked. Everything just went downhill from there. Like after I had left Stacks, it wasn't really like I had fully left the lifestyle. It was another three
mm.
years until I fully escaped those kind of underworld vibrations, just being with the wrong people, wrong places and things. And I don't know, I guess just seeing how much time I lost and how my life was turning out to be a sad story. It acted as a catalyst for me to turn things around. I guess I don't know. I've always had this kind of spark in me where I do want to live a good life,
Mhm.
and I feel like that's what guided me.
Mm. Yeah, in the Bible it says all we need is faith the size of a mustard seed and it will be amplified and you can move mountains with that. And so that's like hearing your story is just literally a testament to having that tiny little grain of faith inside, knowing that the truth would prevail and that you would get out and you would, be safe and healed, but it took a lot for you to get out for sure.
Yes.
If there's someone listening who or family of someone who has experienced something like you, what would you tell them?
For people in my shoes, I feel like the key is really trying to use your pain as ammunition, if that makes any sense.
Mm,
The lotus flower can't grow without mud.
mm.
It's
Inside of your
definitely not easy.
well, yeah, like it doesn't seem like anything like just hearing your voice, you just sound so resolved about it. It doesn't sound like you have pain inside of your experience at all. And so you know sometimes people can listen to that and think, well, she really didn't have it that hard, but it's just a testament to the amount of growth that you've experienced and the healing that you've gone through. Did you have therapists that you uh, found were kind of great or not so great?
Yeah, I want to say most therapists that I had were not very helpful. The one I have now is amazing. And like when I would first talk about all of this, it was actually very hard for me. Like I used to try to talk about it with him, and I would start crying and I couldn't talk about it. And that's actually what we have worked on, to turn that shame into empowerment. So I feel like I do maybe sound like kind of very like calm about this, but it did take a long time for me to get there, thanks to my therapist's help.
Do you have any uh like ill feelings or any like oppositional feelings towards the people from your past who
Um,
pimped you out or, led you to these relations?
I did at first. At first, I really hated. I had a lot of hatred for them, but now I feel like I'm at a point where I have forgiven everyone. I know that karma is very real. I don't feel like I need to seek out any kind of revenge. I think they've already gotten their karma, and I think the universe will balance things out on its own.
Hmm. It's interesting, like when I'm just thinking about this thing, when you and I first met, I didn't, obviously I didn't know you had this word tattooed on your body. And I have the same word tattooed on my body, and that word is fearless. And when I saw that, I was like, this is a sister for life. Like I know that
Yes,
we're going to be doing great work together. Um,
it's meant to
I
be.
It totally is meant to be. Like, how can we both have the same literal word fearless tattooed onto our bodies and then be connected in this way? If you
Yeah.
haven't connected with me in the previous, I'm just talking to our listeners. If you haven't connected with me previously, last year we created an event called Freedom for the Children, and it was a multi-city walk for the awareness of human trafficking and child exploitation. That was a global walk, and so through that, my work and activism really got kickstarted, and I just kept asking the Lord to use me in ways that would bring awareness to our people and education, so that we would be able to stop this from happening. And so part of my work is connecting with survivors and having survivors share their stories. And part of our greater works is to create a survivor care facility that would be state of the art and assist with rehabilitation of our survivors. Do you feel that you are a victim, or that you were a victim at all of your past?
Um, at first I had a hard time accepting that I was a victim. I actually didn't even know that I was a victim of sex trafficking as it was happening. Even after I left, I blamed myself for everything, but my mom is really who helped me realize, because when I first came home, I felt like I owed her the truth. So I told her everything that happened, and she said, "Cara, you are a human trafficking victim." And I said, "What? Like, there's no way." Because I feel like the way Hollywood portrays human trafficking is the way that, like the movie Taken, I feel like that's how people see human trafficking. And really, it's just pimping and prostitution. People don't realize that that's what sex trafficking is. They think, oh, like they have this idea of prostitutes, that they're dirty. This is the life that they chose. And I don't know. And it's like pimps are completely glamorized, and people don't realize that that's sex trafficking.
Right. There's so many different kinds of sex trafficking, right? Like we can sell
Right.
children, we can sell minors, we can sell even adults. Like even adults can be prostituted, and it can be done against their will. And sometimes they feel like this is all they have. And sometimes um, people who are in sex work, when they come out of sex work, it's difficult to find jobs because they're looking to have that same lifestyle with all the money and all of the material things, that it's hard to maintain that without sex work. And so there's a lot of relapse. Did you ever experience any relapse?
Like Stockholm syndrome, going back to my pimp.
Yeah.
Um,
What's for those who don't know, what's Stockholm syndrome?
it's basically forming a bond through abuse and reward. It's basically this sick cycle of abuse where you get a very powerful bond with your abuser.
Mm.
And I think that's what kept me there for as long as I was there. But I never, once I left, I never went back. And I think being in a relationship after that is what really helped me stay away. Having a very supportive family, which I'm very grateful for, really helped me a lot
Mhm.
to stay away from him. But it's definitely, it was a challenge. There were times where I felt myself almost missing it, even though it was abuse, you
Mm.
know? And I think that it's just all psychological. But fortunately, I never relapsed and went back to him.
So are you dealing with any kinds of like legal things that are happening? Is there any residual leftover things that you're kind of dealing with at this moment in time?
Well, I did get arrested for prostitution. I had gotten a few drug related charges, but that has all been resolved. Right now, I do have a court case with my ex because he had strangled me. So I'm dealing with that. That's like one residual thing of my past. But other than that, I feel like an exorcism has happened. It's like all of it is gone almost. This is like the last of it.
Wow. Wow. So let's move on to your book. Tell us about how that began.
So I kept praying to be in alignment with my purpose. I kept asking, I felt like there was a reason why I went through all of that. And I just kept asking God, like, how can my human vessel be used for the greater good of humanity? And I feel like the idea just came to me to write this book. And then shortly after that, one of my friends reached out to me and they said, "Hey, I think you went through what you went through so you can write about it in a book one day and really spread awareness on what human trafficking means." Because I don't think many people understand it. There's a lot of misconceptions that I think you could clear up. And once he said that, I was like, okay, this is a sign. I think God does use people to get through to other people, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that's what led me to writing my book.
Wow, and did you keep a diary at all while you were going through these experiences, or did you just kind of like remember all the things that you went through and wrote a book about it?
Yeah, I never really kept a diary, but I did, like, I thought about it every day after it happened. So it's like it was all in my head, and
Yeah.
it kind of just poured out of me as I wrote it.
Do you know what happened to the other people that you were involved with?
Yes. So, one of them feels how I do. She also eventually realized that she is a sex trafficking survivor. Not there is a few of them that are still kind of brainwashed and think that they should be in that position in life. Some of them, one of them ended up overdosing. Another one is addicted to meth. But I'm happy that at least one or two of them are safe and they have realized the truth as well.
Do you still have relations with them?
Not really. I speak with one of them, the one that kind of feels how I do. It feels good to know that there's someone I can relate to.
Mhm.
But when I speak with like other girls that are still kind of in that situation, it almost brings me back to a weird time. And it's kind of almost counterproductive to where I am now. I try to help them and plant seeds. And I hope one day that those seeds will sprout, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you're sharing is profound, and I think any listener would be able to just I hope and pray to God that people listening would be able to feel this in their hearts and then also want to share this with others, because it's so underground, like we don't even think it's happening, but it's happening. And so um
Right.
so now that you're out and you're in school, what are you in school for?
I'm actually pursuing my business degree.
And then what do you hope to do with that?
I'm interested. I want to get into real estate. I have written one book, so I want to become an author entrepreneur. I want to see if I can turn my Cara Miaverità brand into a business. Maybe. I feel like I have a lot of interest in many different areas, so sometimes it's like hard for me to pick one thing.
Yeah, it'll all supernova at some point in time. Just, you know,
Yes.
I just do the same thing that you did before, ask God for guidance, and God will just like provide that supernova for you, because um you know, you definitely have amazing skills to offer the world, and your story is absolutely incredible. And it is just, again, just such an honor to share this space with you, to call you a friend and a sister. And yeah, I know that we are going to continue doing great work together. Um, do you have
Yes.
any final words that you'd like to share with our audience?
Hmm. I think I think that's it. I think we covered everything.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm thankful for your parents and like never giving up on you. And I'm also thankful to God that, you know, you had that installment of faith inside of you, that, you know, you were able to be in your conviction, even though you chose the other option. The conviction was still there, just, you know, showing that the Holy Spirit was guiding you this whole way. And then eventually bringing you out. And now you get to share your story with the world. And you know, there's a lot of these stories coming out right now, in Hollywood, and even through even smaller things with the MK Ultra programs, and the smaller systems here through foster care, family court law, CPS. There's so much to be known with how we're treating our vulnerable populations. And so thank you for your courage and your bravery and sharing your story today.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful to even be able to share it. I feel like I faced a lot of near death experiences during that time. And I feel like just so many miracles happened for me to still be here and to share it. And I hope that it can help someone else that is listening.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about one of your near death experiences?
Sure. So I could talk about the most recent one that I had. I feel
Hmm.
like, well, this is the one that's still kind of affecting me today. So when I was strangled this time, it was very different. I had been strangled many times just throughout my travels, but this time I felt that I was going to die, and I think that I did die for a second. My life kind of just flashed before my eyes. I saw myself as a child with my parents. I saw the memory of me um, next to God picking my parents, and I watched my childhood. I watched my teen years, and just I saw all my memories of sex trafficking and getting out of it. My last relationship, and it's like my whole life flashed before my eyes.
Mm.
And when I woke up, all my nails were broken off from trying to claw the person that was choking me off of me.
Mm.
And when I woke up, I I don't know, I feel like my entire mindset just completely shifted because I really thought that I died, and I just felt like I had another opportunity once again at life. And I just asked myself, like, why do I keep surviving? I must be here for a reason. And it was shortly after that that I decided to write my book, because I don't know, I feel like something we should think about is the legacy that we leave behind. How do you want to be remembered? What impact do you want to leave on the world? I feel like my perspective of death just completely shifted, because there
Mm.
was a point in time I used to tell myself, I don't think I would care if I die. I'm not afraid to die. And now it's like I feel like I'm on a mission. I'm on my soul's journey. I really want to make the world a better place.
Mm.
Yeah.
Will you remind people where they can find your book?
Yes, it's on Amazon.
and what the title?
It's called Diary of a Sex Trafficking Survivor by Cara Miaverità.
Miaverità, Cara Miaverità. And yeah, thank you so much, Cara, for being on Fearless Friday. And if you are joining for the first time, do subscribe to the channel, and share this video. If you like this video, like it and share it with people who you might think might benefit from hearing this information. And definitely look out for further collaborations between Cara and I, because this isn't the end. This is just the beginning, because these stories need to come out, and it's time to share with the world the travesty that's happening underground and in the darkness. And so, you know, as we all turn on our lights and flicker on that internal light that's given to us by God, we can scatter all of the boogeymans and all of the treachery that's happening in the darkness, and make it known. And so thank you for your service, Cara, and for sharing your book and for sharing your stories in your book, and for having the tenacity to escape and to turn your life into something that is a gift to humanity. I'm just, again, I love you so much, and I'm so thankful that you're alive and that we have you here.
I love you too. Thank you so much again. I'm beyond grateful.
Thank you. And thank you for joining, everyone who joined Fearless Friday tonight. And we'll see you and hear you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.